I just wanted to do a quick little video today to show you how to color a translucent sleeve on a garment where you can see the skin through in a light gray scale when that is the look that the artist does. This is Emily at the Coloring Oasis. Welcome to my video and to my channel. If you're new, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss any new videos. Okay, so I'm still working on her dress. I used an alcohol marker blender, which is why you see a lot of black and white. What I did use are multiple grays. So I'm going to first show you, and I'm using Copic markers for this. This technique can work with Ohuhu markers or other markers as well. This is not the same technique you would use with pencils, but I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gray tones, kind of from dark to light, that I was using on the dress and this other sleeve that I did. And then I used an alcohol marker, a blender, and which is why it kind of turns it white over that light color, and then it kind of leaves like a tie-dye look on her gown. Now, if you don't end up liking that look, you can take your mid-tone marker and go over the whole thing once you've had all these layers and blending, and then it'll be more even with just a little bit of highlight showing through. So I have my 5 grays, and I won't be using all of the colors on the sleeve, just a couple. And then I have my Copic, these are Copic Chows I'm using today. These are my Copic skin tones, which includes the blush that I did the skin with, including the arm. And I'm going to show you how to do this other arm. So first thing I want to do is zoom in and show you here what it looks like. So if you look here, you see the artist did very craftily the arm with the nightgown showing the skin through. Now over here, this gown did not show the skin through, obviously. So it was like a gown that has a full, silk body or whatever. And then just the sleeves are sheer. And I wanted to show you, by the way, I am coloring in Christinekarron's Fairy and Fantasy 4. Forgot to mention that. So what I did is I did my skin tone on my face. I still have to do the ear, my legs. Been working on the hand. I'm not done yet. And then I did this arm. But before I continued on this side, so I'm not done with my fingers yet. Did the arm. Zoomed in, it looks a little different. I'm, still working on it. But before I continue the picture, I thought I would stop and just show you how I did that. So when you're doing a skin tone with a translucent sheer garment, first thing you want to do, all the skin tone on the rest of the body first, so you can know what the shades are. And in these cases, you would want to use very light skin tones, because if you're using a dark skin tone, like maybe a Hispanic or an African skin tone, you're not going to be able to see the sheer layers. So the sheer layer look really works best with pale or light, maybe even a little bit peachy Caucasian skin. But once you've done the skin on all your other areas, then you can kind of judge how you want to do your arm, or whatever part of the body you're doing. And so when you're about to tackle the sheer garment over the skin, first thing you want to do after you've done the rest of the skin is you would do the same skin first before you tackle the garment. However, I always use, as I showed you, 4 shades of skin colors, because you have this little darker one that kind of went for the kind of in the neck and the shadows and the darker areas. You have a mid one that kind of blends that toward the middle of the skin. And then you have the lightest one is actually what I based with before I started with my darkers. And then the third color is technically the one that blends everything together. And I've showed how to do this in many of my Copic marker skin tone tutorial series. But since this darker one, you wouldn't use as much, and you would try to use a little more of the light colors on the arm. And so then you would move on to put in your garment colors kind of around it with a light layer over it. But I'm going to do it, and I'm going to show you. I've laid out my skin tone colors from darkest to lightest. Just need to double check that that was my, yeah, okay. Let's have them in order since they might have gotten messed up. So I will show you how to do this. And an essential tool will be an alcohol marker colorless blender. It doesn't have to be the same brand of whatever markers you're using. I always use my Artex 3-pack, which you can get on Amazon. My Ohuhu 3 or 4-pack you can get on Amazon if you run out of the one that comes with any of your Ohuhus or the Copic one. They all do the same thing essentially. This here is the Artex one. I'm sorry, Art and Fly, and you can buy them in a 3-pack, which I use all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my darker of the skin tones, the one that I used originally for some of these little darker areas, and I'm going to look, I mean, obviously the hand, we can do what we would normally do, right? So I'm going to just do a little bit of this darker one where the darker grayscale is, kind of around where there might be some shadows, the palm of the hand and the creases, a little bit across the knuckles. And then I might go a little bit up and do kind of the curve of the wrist, a little bit of the palm. I forgot to do my base. You don't have to do this. Let me go back. I'm going to take my lightest color and I'm going to first do an all over quick base. This is what I generally do first. Let's just pretend I did that first. Then we'll go in with the darker and start putting in a little bit of these shadowy areas here. I'm going to show you how I do the hand first, and then we'll move on to the arm. I'll take my second color and I'm going to blend into that and kind of start outlining the hand, blending into that darker. I'll use my third color and I'm going to basically try, you always want to leave a little bit of the less colored areas in the center where you go back over with your original base color. Now I'm going to grab my original base color and just kind of go back over everything, which kind of helps to blend it in. It's real simple. That gets your first layer in. I needed to finish my hand over here. Then I go back to my original darkest color and I tap a little bit of that brush point back in around the shadowy area and I brush it over the knuckles. A little bit in the finger here. And then I would take my pinky color, which is my fifth color, which I usually use for a blush. This is actually blush, R20. We'll put a little bit of that pink around the palm, usually right there. I might put a little pink on the knuckles too, as well. And then I'm gonna take my second from darkest color, touch around the nails. I'll go in with a white pen later and do up the nails and nail tips. I'm gonna give that a little bit of that. So basically you get your first layer, 4 colors in, then you touch up in the same process again. So then now we're going to tackle the arm that is under the garment. All right, I want to make sure I have the right, okay. So for this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that same dark. I'm not going to do very much, but I'm going to still do wherever there's a little darker areas where the skin would be under the garment. So maybe a little bit right here around the elbow. I'm going to do a little bit right around the armpit and along the base of the arm. Not very much, a little bit just around the edge. And again, I'm going to get that base color, which I would normally do first, and do a quick all over. I'm going to do it very light though, a quick rollover of the arm. And you can do this before or after your first dark color. Not going to put too much of the dark. I'm going to go to my second color that I did before, the second from darkest. And I'm going to blend along the side of where I did that first darker color. And then along the side, it'd be right around the wristband area. Just a little. Let me get the third color. I'm going to blend this in further. Not very much. That's it. Very little. And then I'm going to take that original base color, do a quick one over. Blended very well right there. Quick one over. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my grays from the dress. There's not many grays of the darkest gray, but I'm going to take the second from darkest gray and just do, that's even pushing it. I think I'm going to do the third, the mid-tone gray. Yeah, I'm probably going to do the mid-tone gray. And around the garment, I'm just going to do some of these areas where you see a little bit twinge grayscale, and I just realized this side has some of her hair showing through, which is a whole other ball game. Darn it, I don't have my yellows here. Anyway, we'll go around that. I'm just putting in little touches of this where you would see some of the crease shadows of the garment. Do I have another yellow I can use randomly on my desk? It's not going to be a Copic, but I do not. I'm going to have to go and grab that. Okay, I'm going to take my second from lightest gray, and I'm going to blend over that because we're not even on the skin right now. We're in the sheer garment. So we're getting in the material aspects around the arm first. I'm doing this a lot quicker than I normally would, just so you get the general idea. And I'm not touching the hair there. I need to grab a yellow, one of my yellows. I can't remember the yellows I use now because I already put them away. And now I'm going to grab the lightest gray of all of them. And this is theoretically a B60, which is pale blue gray. I'm going to go over the rest of the garment, kind of blend everything together, but just some quick light strokes. We don't want it to be too heavy. This is pretty simple. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this light gray right over the skin and kind of flat and some quick layers. You're not going to see it a lot, but you're going to see it enough to where I'm going to do it right into the garment. It's going to put a tint of gray over the skin where it looks like it's underneath the garment. Just kind of pulling the color through it. Okay, and here you can see the yellow went a little through her garment right there, which means I need to take a little bit of a darker gray because you can't see it as well. That's the second from lightest. See if I can touch that. And then you can take one of your little bit darker grays and go back around the skin so it makes the skin pop out. And then you're going to need the alcohol marker blender. And I'm going to go right into the center of this arm once I've put that gray on. It kind of whitens it. It makes it almost glow a little. It's hard to figure out how to explain that. Only on the arm, not where the garment was. All right. So then you can go back in with your original darker skin tone, re-add in a little bit around the elbow there, kind of like I did here back in her armpit. The other side around the armpit. Just to add in a tad more dimension so you can kind of see the outline of the arm under the sleeve. Then I'll grab my, not the second, but the third from darkest skin tone. Just tap that a little, blend it in. We don't want to go too much over that gray. All right, I need to go grab a yellow to touch up that hair. You can then take your second to darkest gray if you need to, because we did put in the little creases of the gown right over her skin originally, a little bit of that. I'm going to tap that, kind of dab that just a little more to kind of like, almost like it shows the folds. That makes sense. I'm going to take my light gray again, the lightest. Just going to go a little bit back over this sleeve area and the skin again. Let me go grab a little yellow so I can tap a little bit of that into her hair right at the bottom. Unfortunately, I can't remember the exact yellows I used. Some yellows and browns because I put them back, so I just grabbed a few and I'm hoping it works. In her hair, there's some little bits of brown in the dark gray spots, so I'm taking the same one we did on the outline of her skin. I'm just going to dab a few spots, kind of where her hair was a little darker. There's a little strand down here. And then I'm going to take I got 3 yellows here. I'm going to take the darker one. I'm just going to dab it very lightly. Just a few little dots. And then I have a lighter one, which is like a mid-tone. I'm going to dab at it. And then I'll take my more lemony one. So really what we want is the lightest of the hair tones. I guess you put less ink in a lighter layer, like here, for example, than you would over here, because you want it to look like it's the same color, but you want to be able to go over it with your gray. Now, while that's still a little bit wet, gotta dab it right here. We're going to take our translucent, might be a little too light. I'm going to take our second from lightest gray, and I'm going to try to kind of stripe over it a little. Then I'm going to take the translucent gray and I'm going to run straight over it, which, you know, you're going to see a lot of yellow through there, but we can tell it's still her hair. I have a little more up here I need to touch up. So it has that hint of gray, so it almost looks like it's underneath, but it's so sheer that you can see the yellow straight on through. Touch it up where needed. And then you can take your alcohol marker blender and you can whiten it up around that area. You can even go straight over if you need to lighten things up. This technique, theoretically, I hadn't thought about this as well as I should have, works a little better with hair that's lighter. I wanted her to be kind of really sunflowery and lemony yellow, because I like my characters in these books to look a little more fantasy. There's some others I've done here, but the paler colors works a little better. So let me zoom out. Now you can see overall, the overall look is that both of her sleeves look, you know, like you can see the skin through the translucent garment. And if you don't like this tie-dye look, and I just wanted to show you this as well, what would happen if you take your mid-tone gray or your second to lightest, and you can run straight over everything once you've had your layers in your alcohol marker blender. This one might not be quite as dark as you'd like. You can soften this up a little. This is my second to lightest color. You can cut down on some of the variant. You can also go one darker, which was your mid-tone, because I have, remember 5 grays. And this is going to really make it a lot darker. It might be too dark. Let's do a little in the folds here and see. I mean, it's not terrible. I didn't want her gown. I wanted it to be some various gray colors because it goes nice with purple. I don't want it to be too dark though. Yeah, so I think I would stick with these are all cool grays, by the way. I think I picked all cool grays. I'm just gonna get the darker on the folds instead. And then I'm gonna take that second to lightest gray again, and then I'm gonna just kind of keep running it straight over, kind of on its side, over all the grays I had done earlier, the alcohol marker blender, which shows that white underneath. And then you can still kind of see the variant transitions of layers of different shades of gray underneath it, but it'll look not quite as harsh. If you end up really not liking that look at all once you do that, you can straight up just take a darker and go over everything. So now you can see the difference. I went over this one, but this one I did not. So this one looks a little more solid. It's not quite as vivid, bright with a pale gray, and the alcohol marker blender makes it look almost white. I actually like that. I like the darker top part of the gown and the lighter underneath. So I'm going to not do the lighter one. Then I'm going to take my darkest gray, the BV25. And by the way, actually these are, what colors do I have? This dark one is grayish violet. Yeah, and the rest are all cool grays. And I'm going to darken this kind of belt thing here. That might not be dark enough. I might even go over that with a dark purple or pencil. Tap back in a little more dark, make it look a little more shadowy. I do need to darken her bow. Do I have a black here? I have a black, I guess yes I do. I have a black Faber-Castell Pitt pen, and that'll work on her bow, I think. Right over alcohol marker and alcohol marker blender. These Pitt pens work great. So this is actually more like a black bow, which is kind of nice to have some darker in the center point, so it brings out how pale and light and translucent and sheer the sleeves are. So if you did a really pale colors, it's not going to put the eye so much to noticing the technique in the translucent material. I'm going to touch up her nose, my Pitt pen, her eyes. I have to still work on this picture quite a bit. I also feel like we need a little of this black around her lattice, kind of lace up here. Alexa, cancel. I have to go, get ready to go to an appointment. It's my reminder. Yeah, but I'm touching that up a little. Kind of brings out the gown a little more. And you might even want to do on the waistband, because the other one wasn't quite dark enough. The darkest gray we were using. Use my pit pen here. I'm going to use my pit pen on the elastic on her gown, which is a good trick because it shows a nice transition. It again brings out the highlighting of the sheer sleeve and kind of shows clearly where the solid body material of the gown ends and the pale one begins. We could also touch up the elastic here on her sleeve. And when you do a black pit pen over gray markers, it's not quite as harsh of a black. It's like a softer black. It almost looks more like a dark gray. So it works really nicely than if you just put it straight on the white. So that works. And then these are just some little touches you can see I do. I feel like there's a little bit here. A little bit of a thread that might be black. Keep it very light. And I'm going to put a little bit in these little folds on her dress. I have to work on my flower some more. I have a ladybug here. I have to do, need to get a nice red, I think, for my ladybug. I have one right here. This is a chameleon. Let's see if this works. It should work nicely. My ladybug. And I still have to do the butterflies, and I want to touch up her lipstick to be a little less grayish purple and add a little more of this kind of actual purple marker to it. This is not a Copic, this is a shuttle art, but I just had it right here on my desk randomly. The shuttle art markers have the fine points and a chisel point, and the fine points are better than a brush marker for things like lipstick, because you want a nice steady hard point so you don't accidentally smudge your face. Oh, this would be the color of my butterflies. Maybe now I just need to go back and do her ear and a few other things. I need to fix that little boo-boos on her face, but this is just, you know, the starting point. But now you know how to do translucent sleeves, how to kind of use alcohol marker blenders to get this effect in the gown, and yeah, and how to use a pit pen to kind of bring out some things. So that's all I have for now. I'm going to continue working on my picture, and you'll see the rest in my What I Colored in August video. Thanks, everyone.